5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thunderbirds are go.
Yay!
Hey, FAB.
That is a fantastic intro. Well done.
Anything could happen. Anything could happen in the next half hour.
Wrong show.
That's Stingray.
Dan's put in the chat. FAB, fab.
Yep. I always tried to work out what FAB meant until I realised it meant nothing.
Yeah,
It meant fab. Fabulous.
SIG meant Spectrum is green. We never found out what FAB meant. No. They did do some. I remember in the 90s they did do a few comic strips of Thunderbirds, which was supposed to tell the whole story of the founding of Tracy Island. And I remember.
Oh yeah, got a collection of that.
Yeah, I remember there was one that was about like Jeff Tracy's youth, and there was one where he actually went on this peace mission, interstellar peace mission, because I think there was this war going on between these. Was it Jupiter they were at war with, and the dying father was one of the enemies was involved, and he had to get him to space orbit on his son. The king's son was like trying to plot to kill him so he could start the war again.
I don't know. I know they did some videos of that. I'm pretty certain on the Jerry Anderson channel. I think it's a Jerry Anderson channel. I've got some of those where they are actually the story of the backstories too.
Ah, yes, cool.
Similar idea, I suspect.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
Oh, it's worth it. If you're a Jerry Anderson fan, it's well worth it.
Sadako, I'll send you the copies later.
Excellent, cool shit.
So tonight we are discussing Terror in New York City, the epic, dramatic episode to come out of this TV show. And our guests are tonight is PJ Maybe, Sadako, and Wendology.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Hello.
So
by the way, it's
carry on. Sorry.
It's Sadako, by the way.
Yeah, sorry. It's
all right. All right. Fair enough. Anyway, the story. I remember the first time I watched it. They released it in a special double set where they kind of edited together Terror of New York City and the episode. I've forgotten the name of the other episodes. The one where they have to deal with that oil rig disaster.
Yes, it was Countdown to Disaster, and
that was the one.
It was Terror in New York City and Atlantic Inferno.
Yeah, that was it.
It was the first videotape I ever watched, and it was my older brother's, and that's why it's implanted into my memory so much.
With regard to Fab, I did a little sneaky research on Lady Penelope because I'm very new to Thunderbirds stuff, and according to thunderbirds.fandom.com, FAB stands for Federal Agents Bureau, which is where Lady Penelope was before she was recruited into IR. If my research is correct here.
Interesting.
They basically Fab was the 60s short for fabulous, and it was to acknowledge it was Roger. But they also come up with later on is fully acknowledged broadcast FAB.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Oh, that makes sense.
Oh god.
Because I remember
That's basically that, but that was what it was at the time. That is what they came up with afterwards. It was only FAB short for fabulous because it was a 60s thing. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just...
That's interesting because it does make sense. Because if there's one way you can drive someone who's a radio communications officer mad, it's by saying over and out.
Roger.
Roger is fine. I don't care if you stammer.
Surely you can't be serious.
What's your vector, Victor? But I do remember, I mean, Wendell, what you said before, I do remember there was few episodes later in the series where you actually see, because Lady Penelope was one of their international agents, and there was another one, they met some other agents who were similar, but they were like a bunch of hillbillies, and they had this special, they had a special truck that did, like, I think it might have had the Gatling gun in it as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sort of learning.
I've put it on my list for the next couple of weeks.
So we begin with the opening of the episode with the Firefly going straight into the fire scene of oil well fire.
Yeah, it's kind of it's mid episode, isn't it? It's almost like you're in the middle of
Yeah.
In radio race, as they say.
Yeah, and meanwhile, there it is.
I knew he was going to put that up.
I got it from Alex.
That thing is cool.
Today.
It's an ugly beast, that Firefly.
Oh,
I love
I love that machine. Yeah, so pretty much, what do you think of the two reporters standing here? Saying
Well, I think the cameraman is such a brave guy, just standing there, no harness, nothing, as the car is belting down the road.
Yeah.
How the hell?
What a brave man!
Well, first of all, let's talk about the what the Firefly does.
Yeah.
Because I was actually, you're going to shoot an explosive into a fire, but like my mum explained it to me. It's like, no, what they do is the blast sucks all the oxygen out of the area, and that starves the fire of oxygen.
Yeah, basically, that's exactly what they do. That's what they've been doing. That's what was it? Or what was his name?
There's a John Wayne movie, and I can't think what it's called.
It's all about this guy.
Red something.
Red Adair.
Red Adair, yeah.
Yeah,
and
it's basically all about Red Adair, and that's what they do. They get as close as they can with the explosives, and then they set the explosive off to basically douse the flames.
Yeah.
It was a Red Adair movie. Yeah.
The thing is that Sadako, is that what it says in my technical manual is that what he fired in was nitroglycerin shells.
All right.
To put the flames out.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
It's the large scale version of blowing out a candle. Come to think.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. It's basically it's the shock wave blows the flames, and the fire sucks the oxygen, so it doesn't relight. That's the object of it.
Yeah.
Am I right that this is the only other time Fireflies have appeared other than Pit of Peril?
Yes. No, Pit of Peril. No, it was Firefly was in City of Fire.
Oh yeah.
And they also just made a cameo. It was a great machine, but the mole took small centre stage.
Yeah. It is a fantastic remodel, I must admit.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But we move on from the Firefly. They put the fire out, and he returns to Thunderbird 2, and you've got the two. Right, you got what's his name again?
Ned Cook.
Ned Cook and his cameraman Joe standing there smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, I know it's that.
It's a great scene.
This is terrible. We can't take photos of them. That is their job, and we're doing ours.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
It was kids' TV back then. It was like it'd be scandalous now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
And soon as Thunderbird 2 takes off, what does he say to Joe? Get on the camera, And as soon as Thunderbird 1 takes off, start shooting.
Uh-huh.
And what happens? that car goes at high speed. When the brakes pull off, I'm surprised that figurine didn't go flying off the top of the car.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He is one cameraman with a lot of guts standing there as that car belting down that road. No harness, nothing. He zooms in on him and he's just standing there.
Well, I'm sure at least a couple of times you shorten the shots, and actually the camera was on there, but the figure wasn't there. A couple of times you look in it.
Yeah. But it was just to me, it was a superb, just the idea of the cameraman just standing there, not in the side of a ring or for protection, he's just basically standing there.
I know, it was great.
On the road. I just love that part.
I like his character arc as well, because you could kind of see the character arc coming, but it was cool though the way they did his character arc.
Yeah,
like from scummy journalist to someone who comes to appreciate what International Rescue do.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
But the funny thing is, Scott takes off, and then it's the chase.
yeah.
They got
Sentinel.
they got photograph detectors on Thunderbird 1, haven't they? So they,
Yes, I know. It's automatic photograph detectors.
I have never, ever, ever understood how they work.
Well, it's the same ones that they
Because-
have in UFOs. That's how we can never get a photo of a UFO.
Yeah, exactly. Because photography is a 100% passive, unless it's a modern camera where it detects the infrared or whatever it does the autofocusing.
Yeah, it must be the click. It's the click it recognises. Doesn't matter how far up the rocket going, he can hear the click, 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 click. But yeah, I just found that funny. The automatic photo detector.
I loved it. It was great.
Oh, yeah.
It just,
and it appears several times.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's one of the things I made several notes, and several of them actually relate basically to watching these things. You can see how technology has changed. I mean, you imagine any of that these days. Okay, everybody there is going to have their mobile cameras out. It's happened now. Everybody there would have their mobile cameras out.
Like that's
no chance. Live streaming it.
But the new Thunderbirds would have a EMP pulse, which would fry them all.
Which you
Or
plug
they
with
wouldn't
mobile
work.
phones. Yeah.
I
Oh,
think
they
it's
do that
like to
same.
have them all around the city centre, just constantly click them so everybody's camera just keeps breaking.
Well, they'd probably go one step better and probably camouflage the aircraft, like what they did in Spider-Man: Homecoming, where you had the plane flying along and it just went into full camouflage mode.
yeah. Why didn't they just have like cloaking? Yeah.
and I think one of my favorite
They
bits
used
in,
to have one, if you remember, with Wonder Woman, and you would just see this woman flying in the air, sitting down.
Yeah.
And
Was,
visible on the airplane, but she's sitting.
one of my favorite bits in the film Cloverfield is when the Statue of Liberty actually its head is thrown off by the monster. It lands in the middle of Times Square, and everyone's shocked, and then immediately they're all on the phones getting a picture of it.
Yeah. That is that is a brilliant moment, a brilliant scene, very well observed.
Yeah. But I just wanted
what people would do. Monster! Click, 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 click.
Yeah.
click.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, what Scott does next is that he uses a certain device on Thunderbird 1 which wipes the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, an EMP.
Because- Yes, and
Right,
the film
no,
is the film's
electromagnetic.
Yeah.
And electromagnetic, was it jammer he called it, or did he call it a pulse?
It's a dead jammer, I think.
It basically
Jammer.
just basically wipes the physical film. Basically,
It will be an EMP because it wipes the video set. The problem is it should also bugger the engine as well.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. It should have actually messed the engines, unless it was a low level one. Just
Unless it was a
enough to-
diesel engine, of course. It might be a diesel engine.
Yeah, but also if it was a low level one, it would have just dealt with the magnetic tape.
you know what? I've
Yeah, true.
actually seen an episode of Top Gear, might have been, or something like that, where they actually tested they had this electro power grid. So they tested this car for its a lightning proof insulation. So they actually activated the grid, so it actually simulated lighting. And the presenter was in the car at the time, and he was like really scared. And then after it went, he started the car, and it started. It's like, that is amazing that it even starts after it was hit by all that electricity.
That sounds like something Mythbusters would do.
Yeah.
Well, it was
It's the fact that he's sitting in there going, I hope it works.
I'm reasonably certain that was Hammond, but it might have been James.
Well, it's exactly.
Hammond is the one. Hammond's the one that was nuts enough to sit inside a Faraday cage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
So we move on from Scott takes off, leaves them high and dry. The film's smoking, and he goes, "There goes your story, Ned." And that's that scene done.
Yeah.
Then we move on to the high octane drama section.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is heartbreaking. This.
I know. What do you all think? Like he was trying his best to avoid those missiles.
Why didn't they challenge him?
Why didn't he even actually get a radio message first?
Why did it take them so long to get the message? To the.
I know.
I'm like, well, I can understand that in a way, in the that he has to let base know. Base then has to work out, realise that it's the World Navy, and get hold of the World Navy headquarters. And it has to go through.
Navy.
Yeah,
it was.
It was the United States Navy.
Well, see, I thought it was the World Navy.
No, United States.
Okay. I thought it was the World Navy.
I get the impression. I get the impression because I know that in Thunderbird 6, by that point, Thunderbird 2 is armed, so it's actually got a cannon fitted into it. But I imagine that must have been fitted later because Virgil never uses that to take out the missiles.
Yeah, but he did. I mean, he did have jammers. So obviously he had decoys.
Yeah,
didn't he? He had something to jam.
He had jammers, but he didn't have anything to decoy it away.
No, he didn't have decoy. He had jammers. But I still want to know. Well, then again, if that's the US Navy, that makes sense why they didn't bother challenging and they just opened fire. Unidentified aircraft.
Yeah.
I get the sense Jerry Anderson's no fan of the Navy because they usually like military types in his shows come off as really trigger happy idiots. Like here, and it did, the Captain Scarlet episode with the polar bases, and obviously it's in Terrorhawks as well. The episode First Strike, but Terrorhawks have to collaborate with that mad military general who's like, take a note, General, on how to handle a whining pinko weirdo. We're gonna nuke Zelda off the face of Mars. He's like, I just had a cold shower. You should try one, Einstein. I'll make a man of you.
Sounds like the military robots in Fallout New Vegas. Pinko commies.
At least I didn't have Kenny Everett voicing the puppet as General Cheeseburger. That's amazing.
Bit too late for that, wasn't it?
I might. Is it real? It doesn't matter. I'll point it out later. It's all right. Just...
Well,
but yeah, it is.
Carry on. Sorry.
It is pretty heartbreaking to see, like, it's a perfect clash between, you got the military just shoot to kill, and like you got Thunderbirds who are just out to, trying to save as many lives as they can, and it's a rare thing. And then it's just the military just don't even ask questions about what they're attacking.
Yeah, it's quite an intense scene, really.
Yeah, but did you not see what one of the things they said, which they didn't understand? So they says it's going too fast for an airplane and too slow for a missile.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Thunderbirds, they have the latest technology, so they have super speed. Like even in the episode, the first episode of Thunderbirds, it was where they actually had to fly Fireflash. Like Fireflash was the latest plane on the market. It was like 6 times faster than Concorde, and yet Thunderbirds had to intercept it they had to get to the scene in time. So they did have super speed, but as you said, it's. not.
But that's what they're saying. That even the military turned around and said they didn't understand what it was because it was too fast for an airplane and too slow for a missile. So maybe that is why they didn't even try and contact it, because if it's too fast for any airplane, did they just
and Virgil made the mistake where he.
But
Well,
then
Virgil
again,
made
you
his
think
mistake.
after the first missile, maybe should have actually says, "Oi, stop shooting at me! This is an rescue."
What did you say, Emma?
What I'm saying is that Virgil did make the mistake where he changed course, and they said it's changed course, and it's on a direct course to New York. That's when they started reacting.
Okay.
Oh.
At the beginning, they were monitoring it, but Virgil made that great mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I thought he was heading away from New York because he'd just been
Well,
to New
he
York.
was actually heading away from them, and that's what they said. He's heading towards New York.
Oh, I see.
But it's just when Virgil gets, when the missiles hit, and then Virgil goes into that nosedive, and surprise one, Virgil just didn't drop like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bit he pulled it back, he's lying forward on his actual pushing it down, and it's not actually going. Whoom!
I have to say, this scene, like I'm watching it now, I think this was much more exhilarating, much more emotionally involving than any Michael Bay film I've seen. Like, this is how you do an action film, an action sequence. Even with the meager resources they had in the 60s.
I think it's actually done in such a way that it's exhilarating for us adults, but for kids, it was wow. That's going to crash. Is it going to crash? It basically kept for kids. It was exhilarating, but it wasn't frightening.
It was, it was a great tension-filled series of scenes, and I, for watching Thunderbirds for the first time, I was totally gripped. I was just like, wow, this is really good.
Because I remember the first time I was thinking, is it actually going to hit the? I mean, they're going to have to rescue it.
It's like like the bit that really kind of where you worry is when Scott's trying to reach Virgil. Virgil's passed out at the wheel. Yeah. That's the bit I was like, oh, this is not looking good.
Yeah, I thought it was the very first time I saw it. I actually thought it was going to land in the water, and then they would have had to rescue it because all their deep sea stuff is in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Thunderbirds 4 wasn't in the pod at the time because it was pod 6.
Aye, that's right, because it had the Firefly and stuff like that. But we still had to get it there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thunderbird 2 is still the heavy lift vehicle.
Yeah.
When the smoke was filling the cockpit, where he was sat, it was quite gripping, and you didn't quite know, like you said, if he was going to crash or if he was going to get there in time. It's just so well paced, that it keeps you in suspense right the way through.
Yeah. And you look at this compared to the Thunderbirds live action movie.
Yep.
What was more entertaining and what was more suspense? To me, the Thunderbirds puppets were more entertaining, but this had more suspense to it than that movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because the thing is, about this scene, you was looking beyond the puppets. You was looking at the high drama, what was going on with Virgil at that time.
But as I'm saying, you look at the type of suspense they had in the live action one and the CGI they could throw at it.
I never saw the
It did not have the type of suspense that would drag you in, thinking, "Oh, I wonder what's going to happen."
PJ, the reason for that, I think, is because in the movie version, the live action movie, it's all about Alan being a selfish, self-involved little brat, and the movie, the old series, was about these heroes who did the altruistic thing.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Even the action scenes, you think of any of the action scenes in that movie that had that suspense where you're sitting there on the edge of your seat going, "Is it going to crash? Is it going to crash?"
Yeah. I'm struggling. I'm trying not to remember that movie, frankly.
Truthfully, I know what you mean, but
it's not for me. blasphemy. That's what I can say.
The thing
Never
is, you
seen
can
it.
tell how good it is because most people
Me
can't
neither.
actually remember too much about it.
Yeah.
If you've watched it and you can't actually mention anything in particular about it, then it's not a very good movie.
Kind of
It's
says a
not
lot, doesn't it? Yeah.
It does say a lot because if you watch a movie that they've spent millions on and you can't remember it after watching it, it tells you all you need to know about it.
Yeah, but I think of the
Whereas
budget.
Jerry Anderson, how much money did they have?
Not
And
a lot.
after all these years, people are still talking about it.
Yeah. Now we go on through. Virgil is 1 second away. He pulls up at the last second, and he's flying Thunderbird too close to the sea.
Yep.
With Thunderbird 1 like shadowing it behind. And as they get close to Tracy Island goes on high alert for fire safety measures and all this and that. And then we get to the scene where Virgil's about to land.
Yeah, and they put all the Hoovers up.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. Tracy Allen had his precautions in case this happens, where they got the firefighting machines.
Yeah. But that scene where Virgil comes down, he said he just keeps saying easy, and you see the crash scene.
Yeah.
And you're surprised it didn't really go nose first into the runway.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
But did you not see the thing moving? Thing says he's down, and I'm sitting there thinking, he just bounced. He just went down and bounced back up, and he says he's down. No, he's not. He's still going back up now.
Yeah, I saw that.
But that's what I'm saying. The entertainment part, the part that he landed, and he says that, and the first thing you think is, but he bounced. So it's entertainment. Even that part, you know he's landed, even though you see him bouncing. You know he's landed, so you can have a laugh at it. It isn't a case of, right, what's next? What's the next bit that's going to happen? Entertain me more. It's basically they're still doing that part, and even something like that, it's almost a case of he's landed, and then you can have a laugh and joke about it.
The thing is, this is like we're only about a third into the episode, and like already it feels like you could have made a whole episode out of this.
Yeah,
You could have easily.
Yeah, I noticed that you're almost halfway into the episode before the actual story that the drama's all about even starts.
Yeah.
As opposed to other ones where obviously you go in and most of them the danger starts somewhere in the first act rather than halfway through the second.
Yeah. Well, you look at it, a movie would take that one wee bit and make a whole movie about that.
Yeah.
And it would be so boring because it's all about that. It's not about everything it led up to and after it.
Yeah. The question is, sorry.
I don't know. I disagree. I don't think you could make this boring. That's a great scenario. Unless
if you take that and then expand it into an hour and a half for that one part, yes, they could make it boring easily. Because they wouldn't actually the bit before and the bit after and stuff like that, it would be incidental. It would be all about the rescue, that part, and that's what I'm saying. I can just see them in the movie saying, oh, that's a good bit, but we'll cut out this bit, so it'll just be a case of flying by and something happens. And you could just imagine a movie taking a small bit of any one of these episodes and making a movie out of the one bit. Whereas look at how much they throw in.
That's what's so great about this story. There's so much in it. And it takes you from one dramatic scene to the next. You don't feel like it's dragging at all, and yet they're still telling a good story. There's no point where you're going, oh man, why can't they finish up this scene and get on with some more, something more interesting. It's got great pacing, and as PJ was saying, any one part of this they could have, dragged into a longer episode, but you didn't need it.
And also, you get the characters come out. Like you go Scott, like he's he's looking after Virgil. It's like he's kind of trying to reach out, but he's keeping his nerve. He's like, "Come on, Virgil, you can do this. You can do this." It's like even though it's an emotional scene because it's his brother, and it's the whole like life project. And it's like
Yeah, and you feel that emotion, which is so impressive with this production. You do actually, you get so involved in the characters that you kind of forget you're watching marionettes. It's just so well told.
I think it's the eyes, I think when Virgil's like recovering in bed, like you see there's this sadness in his eyes of, well, I guess I've just got to slowly recover, and there is a kind of poignancy.
Yeah. But the real question is, should Virgil survive?
Of course.
Yeah. Do you know the one thing I had a criticism for, and I know they used to always do it? I wish when they ever wanted to show a watch or something, instead of actually having someone's hand, they had a marionette hand just for those bits.
Yeah, I noticed they used a human hand for the watch.
They always used to do that. For any time they were showing hands, it was always human hands. I wish they'd actually shown a marionette hand.
I think they needed to show the delicacy of the watch, though, maybe, and they couldn't really do that.
No, but you could get a marionette hand, the hand my size.
That's
what I mean. So it's basically you've got the full size watch to do it, but a marionette hand. So basically, do you know what I mean?
It's interesting. Maybe it was just time constraints, or
it's also the fact is, or else get somebody who could shave their wrists so it didn't look orange. The orange hair. It just, whose hand is that? It doesn't look right. He's got brown hair. It just looked a wee bit off. But to me, if that's the only criticism you can have for a program like this, I mean, it's
I know that I was like, that took me out for like a split second. I was like, oh, that's a human hand.
That's exactly. It's because it's a case of you notice it's a human hand because the rest of it has got you so immersed. You notice it takes you out just for that split second. But that's what I'm saying. It was, if that's a criticism, you know what I mean? Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I mean, if you watch the first 2 minutes of Kenobi, you can have a hell of a lot more criticism than this whole 50 or 45 minutes episode. Entertainment at its best.
And the thing is, it's like they must have like I mean, they took a gamble with the model. I mean, they had to set the model on fire just for that shot, and it's like, and that made it even more kind of tense and jeopardy. And it's like the fact that they were so early into the series when they did this. Like, this is only episode 4, isn't it?
Yeah.
Point. Yeah.
Well, actually, it's episode 13, but the thing is, they put it as episode 4 on the DVDs.
Interesting.
You know what I want to know?
It's showing us 4 on IMDb as well, interestingly.
Yeah,
IMDb showing it as 4. It's on the list as 4. But do you know? I want to know is why they did all that just to move the building 200 yards.
It was a redevelopment thing. They were redeveloping the area, and so they had to move the building to the place that wasn't getting the area that wasn't getting demolished.
It just sounds weird, didn't it? We're moving it 200 yards that way. Really? A whole building that size for 200 yards? It's
that was I was like, really? But you know what? It was so well told that I didn't care. I didn't care. I was enjoying it so much.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, I'm take me there.
It was only the justification of moving it such a short distance.
Yeah. But they wanted to be able to market a Lego model of it.
That's why.
I did read.
Somebody's wanting to build it.
I did read that red sort of scaffold clamp that they had around the Empire State Building was also used in other parts of the series.
Yes, and if you noticed in the earlier scene where Thunderbird 2 was sitting in the bay, it was at the back of Thunderbird 2.
Okay.
So it's great, it's like they're reusing the same stuff.
Yeah.
But then again, that's what they always did with these programs. They always had. You look at Red Dwarf. How many times did they actually reuse the same bits? Just turn them upside down, back to front. Look at Star Trek. basically the original series, the transporter in Star Trek Next Generation, they turned the transporters upside down. It was the same transporters.
Yeah.
So the bits that used to be above them were now they were standing on. It's that type of thing. And there's one, I think there's actually something on YouTube, the most used piece of technology, and it's the one with the flashing red tubes. They're at a right angle.
Yeah.
And you see them in Star Trek, the original series, Next Generation. You see them in horror movies. You see them in Thing and stuff like that. And it's the same too because they look cool, so they just put them in the back of all these sci-fi things.
You saw him in the film Aeroplane 2, where William Shatner goes up to one of his lieutenants and turns around and says, "What the hell is this? It's just flashing back and forth, so we don't know what it does."
Yeah, that type of thing. Yeah, and it's obviously because that was in the original series, and it was also in the Next Generation.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. They always did that. Everywhere did it. So the fact that they're doing it because they've got pieces that could turn it up, they could stand it up, sit down, see it back to front, and it always looked slightly different.
yeah.
We discussed this the other day on Wrath of Khan. They used the Enterprise bridge and the Reliant bridge with the same bridge.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, this
watching the librarians.
Yeah.
The bit when he's talking about Socrates and Aristotle, and he's giving them quotes, and then at one point he turns around and says, "The needs of the few or the many outweigh the needs of the one." And he says, "Who said that?" Socrates. He says, "No, Spock, Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan." I've just after watching it there, it's on the librarians.
I was just wondering if this was inspired by the moving London Bridge to Arizona, but it wasn't, because this came out 4 or 5 years before that happened.
Do you know where I think they got the idea of this?
I know where.
What American city? There was an American city. What they did was actually raised it all up. Most of the buildings. So you're talking about the 19th century. It's mostly wooden, or there was a good few were stone, but there wasn't hundreds, and they needed to raise them up because of it was floods. And they knew it was going to be a problem. So what they did was the whole city, basically at the waterfront, they raised it all up by something like 2 foot and actually repacked it all, because it saves them having to actually knock it all down, move a bit further back, and that's what they did. So I think that somebody's seen that and then gone there.
Fair enough.
Well, anyway, moving on. This is what I was sharing here is how they actually did the work, and this is from the 19th Thunderbirds comics. And it just goes for you to show in the episode itself. It just showed an animation, and now you see in full detail, thanks to Graham Bellamy, the artist who did this, showing how it was like maneuvers and getting it all ready. And you're right, 200 yards ain't that much.
Yeah.
No.
June 20. It's happening in 4 years, so we'll be able to watch it.
Well, not particularly. Apparently, they kept getting the dates wrong.
Look, June 2026.
Yeah, that is an error. Right, and we have got the actual picture here of the mover itself. So it just goes to show how much they were getting ready to move this. And Ned Cook turns around and say it took 10 years of planning and 2 years of construction to get this far.
Yeah,
just to move it. And what they didn't realise what was going to happen next was a surprise to them.
Yeah.
The
one thing I wish they did it slightly differently is I wish they'd says it doesn't look like it's moving, but believe me, it is. Because they would be moving it that slow that people wouldn't be able to see it with their naked eye unless they were standing there for a long time. Because of the weight of it, it would be literally very, very, very slow moving. It'd be moving millimeters at a time. It wouldn't actually be moving to the point where you could see it moving. But I can understand why they wanted to show it, because it would have been me. But if they were on him all the time, and maybe going on to the machinery actually working away, and him saying, you can hardly see it, but it's moving so slowly, it is moving, that type of thing, it would have been a better for that. And then they could
But
have.
I think the fact that it was moving was making it more interesting, I think, for the viewer.
Yeah, I can understand. That's what I'm saying. I can understand why they did it, but even if he was just talking and describing it, and then they onto all the machinery working and stuff like that, and then I could have. It's just then it wouldn't have been an issue, but now because we are more aware of these type of things, that's the difference. Whereas then, we wanted to see it moving. Too bloody right, we wanted to see it moving. Didn't want to be still at it going, it's not moving. It's not moving. No, it's not. Look that, I can see it. It's not moving.
But how close did Ned had to be to see it actually move?
Yeah.
Because when he just got...
He was very unlucky with the buildings, wasn't he?
Yeah.
2 buildings fell on him. It's almost as bad that guy actually survived Hiroshima and then Nagasaki. I was
thinking exactly the same thing. Yes.
And I do actually, but he survived. It's a miracle. There's another one falling on him.
I must say, I do like the bits with the Thunderbird where the Tracy family are watching at home, and it's like they feel like an actual family watching, going, "That idiot, what's he doing?" And Virgil's like, "Oh God, I've been in sick bed. I've been in the sick bed all week. I've watched far too much TV. I'm not interested." It's like,
yes,
he said you'll be interested in this.
Yeah, it's like little human moments like that. I thought maybe kind of brought them to life a bit.
Yeah, it's not a job; it's a family.
Mm-hmm.
You're only working, sitting there with all your work colleagues just talking work. You're sitting with the family watching the TV or gabbing about, oh, by the way, you need to watch this. This is really going to be really good. It's family. You wouldn't be able to go in, can you imagine going into a colleague who's just had an accident and saying, turn the telly on. I'll tell you where to go to.
If you go back a little, Jeff Tracy was having a letter written out to say why he couldn't attend to see it in person.
Exactly. And even getting fed. What was the man's name?
Corona.
You could never have again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a case of.
Yeah, I did notice that.
But to me, that was just, it could have been any representation there. It's just somebody who works for them.
Mm-hmm.
They are a rich family. It didn't matter how you put it. It's a rich family. It could have been anybody working for them. But it's not as if the guy was looking after them. It's not as if a case of you're paid to do my breakfast.
It's just pure bad luck that it happens to be the monk's the hood's brother.
Yeah. That's true.
Well, I mean, I've actually been listening to a couple of the audiobooks, and what's interesting in them is that the hoods in both of them, particularly in the second one, they actually show a lot of concern. It's quite clear that, I mean, Jeff frequently calls Kirano old friend. You know, it's quite clear that the relationship is not a master-servant relationship. It's more a case of...
It does feel like a warmer relationship, and there's more respect there.
Yeah.
There's not a sort of an attitude of looking down on him. It's like he's part of their family.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not sure if it's ever suggested, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if they don't come out and say, for example, that Jeff helped pay for Tintin's education.
Mm.
You know, that it is that sort of a relationship. It's not a Oriental servant relationship, you know. And it just happens. And as you use someone used that horrible word a couple of minutes ago. It is representation. It is having non-American characters, non-white American characters who actually have an important role.
You know, that reminds me of that episode of South Park in the early first season where they actually bring Kathleen Griffin and on that parade, and
Yeah.
should we employ the chef? And the senator goes, "Of course, he's a black man. We should represent us perfectly. He'll show how politically correct we are." Like, oh god.
South Park is so funny.
Yes.
Oh, the best thing is I was almost disappointed when they did his name's Tolkien in the last season, because
Tolkien,
because I'm sure they did it a while back. He's the token rich guy. What did you think he was? Because his family's rich.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they did that years ago. That he's that, because all the others are poor. I mean, especially look at Kenny's family, right? None of the others are particularly well off, but Token's family are rich, and he's the token rich kid. What did you think it meant? You know, they did that a while ago.
Can't remember.
Those guys are super sharp.
I'm sure they did that a while ago, rather than the Tolkien one.
Well, anyway, moving on. So we come to the parts where the ground starts to subside, and then they have to stop the movement of the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
And what does Ned Cook say? We've just been ordered off this site by the police. And then into the hole he goes.
Yeah.
Well, that's comeuppance, isn't it? That's like this is play stupid games when he's like been the reckless. I'm going to dare the risk for a good story all along, and this is his comeuppance, isn't it? This is like hard lesson to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do wonder, like, on the Thunderbirds watching thing, do we have to save him?
Yeah.
But of course they do. Of course they do. They do the noble thing.
Well, that brings the whole arc together. I actually thought his character was going to die because the way he drops in the hole, and then they're both like crumpled on the ground. I was because I haven't seen this episode before. I thought, oh my god,
I thought that was actually going to land.
I was like, that's quite a violent death scene if that's what that's going to be. But it turns out, they sort of he gets up and then they.
See, I actually thought Ned was going to actually say as Thunderbirds will be here in there, or the cameraman was going to say Thunderbirds will somebody will rescue us, and he would say who Thunderbirds after what we did to them. I mean, I thought that was going to come out his mouth because it's him realizing that pissing people off that may actually be good, you might not want to do that.
Yeah, and it's got a double lesson because it's got that lesson, and then it's also got the morality of what they do with international rescue is about rescuing people. They don't really, make a discernment about whether they like them or not. Mm-hmm. They go in and they rescue people. It's
like the end of Voyage of the Dam with where. Like the doctors tried to save everyone. The one person they ended up saving was the really Kylie Minogue, who he really was rooting for. She dies, and yet the scummy rich businessman survives.
Yeah,
and Mr. Copperfield, like, you wouldn't have wanted to save him if you could. It's like, but if you could choose who could lives or dies, then you'd be a monster kind of thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was so sad.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, Ned and Joe were lucky to survive, especially falling into a cabin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and as I said, basically, especially when they showed you the camera falling in after, I thought that was literally going to land in one of them.
Yeah, and I often, a couple times I was thinking, well, with a lot of stories, there'll be one casualty, so his cameraman will probably die, and then he'll be the one that gets pulled through because he's sort of the antagonist in the beginning, and then his he has that story arc. But I was pleased to see both of them make it.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show that after the Empire State Building collapsed, and they got live pictures saying this is the Empire State Building, it is no more. And then the family decides, right, we've got to get Thunderbird 2 there right away. and then they come out with a discussion, but Thunderbird 2's out of action. So how are we going to get to him?
I was wondering that because I was thinking, could they airlift Thunderbird 4 with Thunderbird 1 with just connect with just cables maybe to carry it?
See, that's
They
what I
could,
thought.
they could have done, but the problem is Thunderbird 1's too fast, and it would have taken forever to like.
I did wonder that. Yeah.
But another thing is they were discussing, and Jeff comes out with, the time you get there, you would have made it in time for his funeral.
Yeah.
And then he mentions, but if I get the commander of the Sentinel, and that's when it's Virgil saying,
I think it's going to take him 24 hours to get there.
Yeah.
I think the what they were hinting at though was that Thunderbird 4, it's not like if it's going to go ocean. If it's going to go through the ocean, then that's when you get like a lot of riptides and a lot more, much more violent currents. So it seems to be suggesting that Thunderbird 4 can only really sustain the tempestuous seas for so long or something.
Yeah, like because it was like this little short hop then when Thunderbird 4.
Yeah.
Well,
he jumped in that to finish it.
Well, Thunderbird 4 is a scout craft. It's not stingray. So that's why they said he would never got there in time. But at least they asked the commander of the Sentinel to, get Thunderbird 4 straight to New York, and especially the Sentinel boat actually being a fast attack strike vessel.
Yeah,
getting to New York within 24 hours, but they were still having trouble trying to get there.
See, I thought the way they actually did it actually worked very well, because if the building had fallen and Thunderbird 2 was fully functional, there wouldn't have been the rush because of the time frame, because they would have had to speed that up.
Yeah.
Whereas they didn't need to speed it up. It was just a case of they had to delay Thunderbird 4 getting there. And the easiest way to do it was the accidental attack, the accidental destruction, partly destruction to put it out of action.
I got a question for everyone. Did anyone hope that was it Gordon? He's the one who flies. Gordon's the one who pilots. Right. When he gets lifted on the Navy ship, was anyone hoping he was going to deliver knuckle sandwich to the commander? This is Virgil, you asshole.
Yes.
Who was the one that fired on me? Thunderbirds are go.
But then again, it does show that the Navy kind of do redeem themselves at the same time, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, come and think of it.
Even at the beginning, when they're talking about it, it's a case of they know it's not a plane in their own mind, but because it's too fast for any known plane, but it's too slow for a missile. But what else could it be if it's too fast for a plane? Something new. So I suppose that's why they were looking at and especially as you said, it turned towards New York. Oh dear. Something we don't know is suddenly turned towards New York.
There's an interesting parallel happening with that as well, which I couldn't help but pick up on. And that is the scene where after the Empire State Building sort of falls over and it's just this big pile of rubble with all these emergency vehicles. I instantly thought of 9/11. It was very similar in the photos, some of the photos that you see. And the fact that it's called, Terror in New York City. It's got a very eerie sort of parallel in some way.
Falling.
That's like when Dolly's like you say, it's like it does feel like they've really researched what would happen if a building collapse would happen, what it would look like, what it would feel like. That it's like they
especially when you consider the fact that back in the 30s or 40s, the Empire State Building was hit by a plane.
Yeah.
I think it was a biplane, but
it was a biplane, yes.
Yeah. But obviously not the major.
Because they built it knowing fine well it could at some point be hit by a plane.
Which would be
That was why
logical because of the
structure-
height of it.
structure
Yeah.
was such- it was such a way. It just it was unlucky. It was hit by two.
Well, but the thing is, it was hit at high velocity. But it's like I think it was designed like I think plane proof means obviously like if you're hit by accident. But I think if unfortunately those were deliberately like they were like
No, but even if one of them did it deliberately, it wouldn't have done the same damage. It was because it was two.
Oh yeah,
But see, it wasn't just the plane; it was also the fact it was full of fuel. Like it was a short-range flight, and they said, "Well, we're going to hit it with the." We're getting into a bit of morbid territory here now, aren't we?
Yeah,
but like it was, but it's the fact that it was full of fuel. Like it was designed, like they knew they could exploit the fact that it was, like it was, they could turn it into an explosive missile.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, it had. That's what I loved about
the similarities between this because it was two towers that went down in this episode as well.
Yes.
Well, actually, yeah, indeed.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, but the thing is, you look at it, it's easy to find parallels because you could. I mean, I was also reminded of the fact there've been several stories over the last few years. There's one that I can't remember what I was watching, but I actually brought up. There's one a few years ago where there was a South American football team or something that was stuck in an underground cave, and they were by. I think some of those were actually rescued by British divers. So it's, you.
I think
world is such. You're likely to see parallels of sorts.
Yeah, and I think that's what made this so compelling as well, because it just you very easily slip into this story and connect with these characters so well that you forget, that you're, like I said earlier, you forget almost that you're watching marionettes. It triggers something in your brain, and you're just really pulled in, and you're kind of feeling what they're going through.
Yeah.
On a level, and it's really well done.
I think it's just a gift, right? It's just a gift for being able to write a suspenseful story and know how to have each action unfold at the right time. And the ticking clock, the ticking clock in this is really well established as well.
But another thing I want to move on, where you say it's compared to 9/11. With 9/11, it explains, but this is underground rivers, so it just goes to show that some buildings are not really safe unless you detect these underground rivers.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
It does make me wonder why they hadn't detected them, but maybe they changed its surveys. I don't know.
Well, they're going wild with the idea of what could happen in, like it's set in the future, so they think what could happen in the next 20 years we can't foresee. Like moving the building itself seems like a mad futuristic idea, but the idea that New York's underground rivers could get their revenge, shall we say?
See, the thing is, I could have accepted the underground rivers slightly changing. What I couldn't have accepted was when they were moving the building, nobody surveyed the land they were going to be moving over.
I was like,
sorry, drilling a hole going, there's nothing under here. We can't.
No, but that was making a point about man's arrogance, I think.
Yeah, but it's the fact is they spent 10 years planning it, 2 years of construction. Nobody actually thought, well, we're going to move it over there. Somebody check to see if it can go there.
And again, I think to a degree it shows changes in tech. I mean, if you think about it, these days you could have had the whole bloody thing surveyed by a time team with geofeet in a day.
Yeah,
whereas 1966 at the moment may not have been that level of ground penetrating radar or something. They may not have had quite the same technology. So again, it's a question.
That's why I said initially drill a hole, because that's how they would have done it anyway. They would have literally had a drill a hole just to check where it's going to go.
Yeah. So I didn't hear you say that.
Nowadays, even when they're building houses, they drill test holes just to check the thing to see how deep they have to put foundations down.
Yeah.
Wendy, you don't mind me asking this? Is that you've been to New York, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm from New York.
You're from New York, right? When you was there, how much construction and that was going on there at the time, especially with like the subway tunnels being constructed.
I don't know because I didn't live in Manhattan proper.
Mm-hmm.
I lived a few counties away from Manhattan. I worked in a county that was just around Manhattan, like the next county out. But I didn't live in any of the boroughs of Manhattan, so I couldn't really tell you.
Yeah, but you must have like noticed if you visited Manhattan and seen what was
Oh
going
yeah,
on.
you'd always see some kind of construction going on. There'd always be something going on because it was a huge city.
You have it in London as well. You think about it, the underground's not as extensive, but
Yeah.
you've still got undergrounds there. You look at Glasgow, even that's only got a ring underground.
Yes.
There's still a lot of building work getting done. So, and that's still round about where the tunnels are. So,
I mean, there's tunnels. There's so much that can go wrong. That's been there for so long. It is incredible. And I was thinking to myself, on a much smaller scale, we see things like what happened in this story. As I say, albeit on a much smaller scale, but like when sinkholes open up in the middle of a highway.
yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I think this was. I think this predicted sinkholes.
So I mean, if a sinkhole can open and it hasn't been detected, it's the same principle with this. They didn't detect that there was underground rivers under there and that there was.
See, that I would say yes. However, if you're moving a building to a location, then it found out a sinkhole's in that location as you're moving it, then something's going wrong because you've got a building, it has to go there. So why wouldn't you have surveyed that part? That's
especially that weight, something that heavy.
Exactly. That's what I was meaning. That when they were doing it, why didn't they know that was saying? Fair enough, they might have actually surveyed where they were going, but you would think they would know that the building's going to go across this bit, this bit, this bit, and this bit. Check to make sure it's stable enough. Because it might not have been a river. It could have been anything. It just might have been an old marshy ground because New York was built around a lot of marshes at the time. Same as London was built, there was a lot of marshes because there was a river going through it. So a lot of that got built up on and it's dried out. But
yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Florida is really bad for it.
Yeah.
They've had like massive sinkholes in Florida that have like swallowed houses.
Yeah. And sometimes sinkholes occur because of underground mining areas.
Yeah. And the good thing is as well is you can understand even at the time why they just did it anyway because it was a kids program. So they didn't need to actually go into too much thing. But as long as it was a reason to get the excitement going, then it's a case of don't think about it because kids are not going to think about that. As old kids are.
Well, they to be fair, I mean, it's the same as you look at Doctor Who. In as much as they probably never expected people to be talking about it 60 years later.
Yeah.
Right? They probably never expected to have a situation where you've got adults with adult knowledge, adult experiences, most of whom probably have also got quite a lot. If you can be an adult in particular watching something like Thunderbirds, you're probably going to be someone who's got a lot of sci-fi under your belt or in your brain. So they weren't expecting people who were going to actually pick some of these things up. And they did remarkably well, I think, for what they did.
Well, the thing is, like William Hartnell, I think he actually clashed with directors quite a lot. Like you see it even in that docudrama.
Adventures in Time and Space, when he was talking about you need to use the same buttons to open the door.
Yeah, and he says Well, the thing is, what he said apparently at the time was, children watching are your harshest critics. They want to believe in this, and if they see things that make them not believe in it, they're gonna lose interest. They're gonna feel like they're not gonna believe in it anymore.
Because if you open the door using button A 1 week and then button Z the next week, people are going to go, that button didn't do that last week.
That was very astute of him, to pick up on that.
Oh yeah, this is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's the same idea with this. There's nothing in it you could watch as a kid thinking that looks weird, that looks funny, that looks unusual. But whereas you imagine it had the Empire State Building and it had maybe 3 trucks pulling it, then you can imagine the kids going, no. Whereas the way it looks spot on. So a kid could look at it and go, "Yeah, I can understand. I can believe that is moving the building." And that's the difference. So you imagine somebody who just thinks, "Don't worry, kids won't bother about it." Right? Okay, just have 3 dumper trucks pulling it.
Yeah,
We'll see it's on a special stand.
You don't.
And we'll just pull it.
The thing you never do is insult your audience.
Exactly. And this one shows the size of the model they made to show it. What?
Unless you're Chris Chibnall, but that's another discussion.
That's a different discussion.
I was going to say, unless you're a modern day creator, in which case you ignore your audience. Okay, well, they won't notice that cause another flash, another explosion, another jump cut, so they won't notice this anyway.
The problem is they actually have noticed, I found that out harshly a couple of weeks ago, that they don't. When somebody tells me The Mandalorian's the greatest program ever made, and that's somebody who's not sitting back with his hand out, that's basically somebody who's out working hard, a lot of common sense, and still thinks that.
Yeah.
Because it's because it doesn't matter what the old programs say, the old movies do. This is the greatest movie. This is the greatest TV show ever made. That's a quote. And then you realise that maybe Chris Chibnall's got it right. He's doing it for the right people if he doesn't want us old fossils around.
Well, I mean, my answer to that is okay, fine. Now just watch anything from 20, 30 years ago. And if you still have that opinion, I will disagree with you, but I will respect your opinion.
Yeah.
Because
that's someone else. People say they like something I think is a load of junk. Then just because I don't like it doesn't mean they shouldn't like it. I quite understand that because there's a lot of things I grew up liking that people would go, you like that rubbish? Yes, and I'm not going to change my mind because you called it rubbish. And I still watch it. Yeah, there's things that I call rubbish.
We all have to make up our own mind.
Exactly. Yeah. But the thing is, 20 years' time, I'll sit and talk to them about the programs they watched when they were kids. And let's see if we've still got the same. I'm talking about the stuff that I watched when I was a kid, and they can tell us about the stuff they watched as a kid. And if they can actually go, I don't know, I can't remember it, then was it worth it? And that's the thing. If somebody says, I've been a fantasy sci-fi fan all my life, and I watched this growing up, okay, right, let's sit down and talk about those things you watched 20 odd years ago. Tell us about them. Oh, I can't remember them. And it's the difference. Whereas ours, we all want to remember them because they were so entertaining and so much fun. That we're watching puppets. And I'm in my late 50s watching puppets and enjoying it. And I'm happy with enjoying it.
Yep, exactly. Because it's good storytelling.
Definitely.
At the end of the day. And that's all you want.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. As I said, there's stuff out there that I watch it, people think is the biggest load of junk. I'm okay with that. Because there's some things I watch I think is junk, but they still tickle my fancy and I still enjoy them. Yep. Even though I think, oh my God, imagine me watching that rubbish. I think Voyager has got some of the worst characters and some of the storylines are a bit OTT. But I still love to sit and watch it.
But it's a guilty pleasure. Yeah, exactly.
It's so entertaining. Whereas I agree if somebody says it's crap. But I'm okay with that.
You enjoy it. Exactly.
And that's the thing. If somebody enjoys something, if they're watching it just to watch it for no other reason, then is that really right? But if they're watching it because they enjoy it, then they can't be wrong. And that's the thing. They can't be wrong for their taste.
Yeah.
And when somebody turns around, you're just watching puppets. And we're loving it because it's good entertainment. Don't care if it's puppets. Don't care if it's cartoon characters. Don't care if it's sock puppets. As long as it's entertainment and it's enjoyable. Okay with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because look at all
Anyway,
the
let's
stuff we
move
do.
on.
We
to
better
the yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the rescue.
Dun, 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 dun,
Yes,
dun,
how
dun.
the thing is, when the rescue was happening, they passed breathing air tanks down to them to keep them going because the water was coming up fast, and they kept getting the time wrong because they were looking at their watches, saying, "Yeah, it could be up at 9 o'clock," and next day, it's come up too early. Yeah, and in the end, was it they're just waiting around for Thunderbirds 4?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the thing. It's like for most of it, it's like the rescue doesn't even start until late, does it? Because that's the jeopardy's drawn out. And the thing is, much of it is the fact that his cameraman keeps losing it. He keeps on losing consciousness. Like, and so much of the
cold.
Yeah, and it's like so much of the battle, much of the suspense is he going to save his cameraman? Is he going to keep his cameraman with us? Like, just it's like if he keeps slipping away, kind of thing.
That was one part I thought was hilariously funny when they put their mask on and they're literally sitting in the shelf.
Yeah,
they're just sitting in the shelf. It's almost you can just imagine them sitting there whistling, waving their legs, waiting.
Yeah.
The thing that impressed me about that bit was the fact that they did show like his mate, the cameraman, was actually shivering. So they were accurately depicting, the fact that he was going into like hypothermia from the temperature of the water. So I thought that was, again, those were those little touches that really brought the drama to it because it was like he was really experiencing something.
Yeah,
but the conversely, they're sitting there. There's one bit when he turns around and says, "Till our air adds out," and I think, well, then why don't they just send you down new air tanks? They've been to send stuff down to you.
It was stated that they only found a couple.
Oh right, okay.
They only found a couple of air tanks located at a naval yard.
Oh right, okay. I missed that. Must have missed that. Cheers.
But the main problem is that they had to swim around to find where the water was coming in from.
Yeah.
And then the main problem was that the air tanks ran out. How the hell they survived on no air in those tanks?
Yeah, that was, I mean, he does say something like there should be a little bit of air left despite the fact that it's reading 0, but that was still a little bit of a stretch, the length of time.
Yeah, and you could hear the cameraman go.
Yeah, I was just like, no, I don't think they would have revived if the air was getting that low. But that was the only bit really that I thought.
Scott,
I think it was actually still well done considering it was a kids program. And it was trying to show the dangers. The cold water, don't get caught in cold water because that can do damage. That type of thing.
Well, that's the thing. It's like it's showing the kind of hope and despair, like the moments where they're despairing, and like the Thunderbirds crew are like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna make this rescue happen. We've got that iron kind of determination and hope kind of thing, and at the same time, you got the human kind of look. We're not gonna make it. It was just
that.
I love that.
Yeah, it was legit drama. It was really good.
Yeah. And with Scott being there, talking to them, trying to keep them round.
Yeah.
And he also mentioned that the last atom of air is the difference between life and death.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I mean, they don't sugarcoat it in that regard.
Yeah. And then when Thunderbird 4 finally manages to get close to them, the ground subsides and to spread it. And then we switch to the building where you got that building waiting to go over, and what's sitting outside the building? A parked car.
Yeah. And do you know who thought whose the car was?
No idea.
Well, there was only one car left that says everybody else has been evacuated. There's 2 people down the hole.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I says, that's their car and they're going to lose it as well. You think somebody was doing
Yeah.
Could this day get any worse?
Damn it, I've lost
I
the
was
car.
looking at it. I wonder if they're going to lose their car as well, because all the other cars had been moved. They said it had been evacuated, and there's one car sitting there.
Yeah, but you don't need to like.
Whose car could it be? I wonder.
Yeah. But you don't need to like get in your car to evacuate the area. They probably evacuate the area on foot because they usually do that in emergency procedures.
Yes, but you think about it. All the other
Yeah.
cars around that building's gone. There's only one
Yeah.
car sitting there. If they're evacuated, they've told everybody to get out, and people have got in and got their cars and away. Why is there one car sitting there? And that's what I'm saying. If there was other cars put in, they would have been hanging, but there was one car. And I wonder whose car that is. There's only 2 people down the hole. That's just the way it was. My mind was going. I thought, poor guys are actually going to lose their car. Probably the cameraman. Probably the cameraman, because it didn't look.
We have
nice.
a gym.
Big guy. Yep. Oh. You thought you'd pop in and add to the view counter.
Hello, Jim.
Hello.
Hello, Jim. Do you got time to pop in or?
Remember, it's a 30-second delay. Or is it 10, 15 seconds? I can't remember exactly how many seconds it is.
Well, the building. We'll get to the scene where the building is about to go over,
Yeah.
and when the car falls into the hole, that's it. So, but it looks like Jim's about to come in any second.
Oh, cool.
But all I can say is that once that building goes over, it didn't actually fall down like it did in 9/11.
No. Yeah.
It went over in one great big
Yeah,
block. Yeah.
It actually tipped, didn't it, as well?
It fell in one big,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that was like 9/11 was like hit from the top down, whereas this was kind of its foundations are going from the bottom, like so it's basically tipping from the bottom.
Yeah, it's typical on the side, isn't it? The hole is spreading out basically.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's tipping into a hole rather than being taken down on the
But
side.
you do get the feeling when you're watching this that you're actually like at least I as I was watching it, I mean, I was just like, I was feeling anxious. I was actually like getting into the vibe of the fact that my brain was being tricked into think that building was actually really real and it was coming down. And you get that lovely sense of tension when you're watching it, which really again demonstrates, that they're telling a good story. They're telling it well. They've drawn you in.
Yeah.
I don't think those 2 police officers helped because they kept putting more doom and gloom on it all the time.
Aye.
Ramping up.
Remember, the 2 cops are just actually entertaining themselves because, yes, Thunderbird one was there, but they never really see them. So,
But what I've been wondering though, it's like when usually when Scott arrives on the scene, he has that mobile operation, that whole kind of whole desk of communications anyway. It's
Mobile
like,
control, that's another one. Yeah.
yeah.
it's like, does he carry that in a suitcase or something?
No, it's got its specialised stuff to it that makes it manoeuvre up and down. More like some caster wheels, probably.
Oh, so it's I see. So it's like almost like a robot almost.
You could put it that way, but knowing him, he probably has to push it everywhere.
Yeah, probably just lower than Thunderbird 1, doesn't it? It's probably got
Yeah.
Thunderbird 1.
But it is particularly interesting, Scott just sitting there all the way through it. And here we have...
Hey!
Yay.
Hello, Jim. Well, I mean, like you said about the character of Scott, I mean, like he is basically he's the oldest, isn't he? Am I right? So he's basically he is the kind of he takes after his father a lot, so he's kind of got the father's wisdom and pragmatism to him, hasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And you see that come through here, definitely.
I mean, he is definitely Gold Commander. His role is first on scene and an emergency commander.
Yeah.
You know, you see, he doesn't get his hands dirty, so to speak, anything like as much as the others do, because that's not his job. His job's to coordinate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so Jim, what are you thinking overall of watching this episode?
I watched Thunderbirds as a kid, so a very long time ago. And something that popped out to me that I realized this afternoon whilst I was having a little bit of downtime at work, I forgot they were a family. Working together and doing all of this. But overall, it's because it's a little bit related to part of what I do at work. It's triage, it's solve a problem
Reacting
that
to
is
situations. Yeah.
exactly to resolve a situation that you have in front of you to get the best possible outcome. I don't really rescue people, but that's what they do here because the journalists are trapped underneath the Empire State Building, and then the risk of another building falling on the top of that. Again, they're drowning, or well, they're at the risk of drowning because the water is rising, and it's a race against time. Because it's Gordon, isn't it? That is coming a little bit too late, or literally with minutes to spare, so he can dive in and rescue them. It's really, really well crafted. The one thing that I would have loved is a little bit more facial reactions, but then you can't really ask so much from
It's
string
a
puppets.
puppet.
Well, no. I think it's also that it shows that they are stoic. They're like the kind of they've got to be stoic about this.
Yeah, so
One of the things they
there
do,
is
though,
that
is they-
to it.
Yeah, like with Virgil, they did have a different marionette that they used that they'd, dress to show his injuries, So they do show some, not reactions, but they do show like, it's not like him, the same face unscathed laying in the hospital bed. They have sort of dressed the marionette or had like a different one to depict his injuries, which I thought was really well done.
Well, not only that, but
That's something they could probably have done a little bit better. Is the cameraman that falls when the crack is opening up? If you look at the fall, that looks like it would have really crunched a lot of bones if it had been a real stuntman.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean,
So
I don't know. I didn't notice it myself that I know something, but saying on one of the things notes I'm making on IMDb is that at various scenes when he's on board the ship, Gordon goes from being clean shaven, having stubble, back to being clean shaven. And so they even went to the extent of actually having a stubble on his face to show that he'd been, they'd been up for one, or we hadn't had a chance to shave.
Yeah, it humanizes them a bit. Yeah.
That's another thing that I actually picked up. I thought I saw it wrong first, but who is it? He has to do a stressful maneuver in the beginning when he's about to crash and pull up, and it's a close in on his face, and you can see that they deliberately sprayed moisture on top of it, so it looks like he's sweating because it's such a stressful situation.
And I
It's
just
like
love
tiny details that are so amazing.
Yeah, I would have liked to see more of the POV shots of Thunderbird 4, because there is that bit where Gordon's approaching the cave, and it's like, you see that point of view shot, and it looks like it's a dead end, and you think, God, he's got to start all over again. And then there's that. Let's look at it. No, actually, when I'm in there, I see there's a bend. There is an entrance there.
Because you see Thunderbird Thor starting to rotate round, and it's at that point he says, "No, it's a sharp bend."
Yeah.
I think if they went down, he came round left. You imagine if he went right and it was all just blank wall. But I must admit, do you know that there was a good quote in this, and it wasn't a Thunderbirds quote. It was, I think it was one of the very last things it was said. I don't know who they are or where they come from, but come they do, and help they bring.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean,
That's the type of thing they should have had. See, when they're doing the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's the type of thing they should have actually introduced after, maybe even just after the Thunderbirds are go, and then maybe just at the something that getting said,
Or maybe at the end of each story. Maybe at the end of each
the
story.
end of each story about that type of thing, because it's actually quite a good point at one, because
Yeah,
nobody knows who they are or where they come from. But
but they could only have it at the end of that episode because it's the catharsis of that episode. You couldn't have it at the beginning. You couldn't have it at every episode. It become insipid if they put it at the end of every episode. But this episode it feels earned.
I suppose it does, but maybe that's why I think But I was thinking, just as even just a comment, because it doesn't matter what they basically they bring help. So it is no matter what the situation is, they come and they help.
Yeah.
And I love that message. I really love that message.
Tell you what it reminds me. It just reminded me of. You know that sound the TARDIS makes when you leave it on, brings hope to everyone who hears it.
Yeah.
It's just literally you saying you saying about that line. It literally just reminded me so much of it. Exactly the same sentiment.
Yeah, well, we often sort of, joke and say, can you imagine if we were out somewhere and we actually heard that sound? People would they'd be like, loads of people would just start running in that direction.
Yeah.
They would. Do you know that was one of Moffat's things that I hated about his was when he tried to make the Doctor means warrior, and people are scared of that sound because it brings destruction.
Yeah, I know.
And I thought, no. You basically play that sound anywhere, everybody will be going, oh, the Doctor, where? They would be actually going, oh my God, no.
No, but what it's saying is, look, you got to be, in order to save people, you got to be a formidable challenge to your enemies. You got to be intimidating enough that they'll think twice before they do their, dastardly deeds again.
Yes.
You got to kind of.
Yes, but the way he was actually implying it is almost it's a case of people fear it.
Yeah. I mean they did that. That was in. I actually liked A Good Man Goes to War, but I know what you're saying. It's different. I mean, I think it was perhaps intended to do that to make the Doctor think. In that situation.
Well, yeah, but it was a new Who thing. Is like I think in the old series,
oh yeah, definitely.
In the old series, the Doctor I think was wise not to just saber rattle his enemies pointlessly. Whereas in the new series, he seems to do it all the time, and you're thinking, well, that's not the Doctor to me. And so finally,
I'm the Doctor. Run.
So eventually, like in A Good Man Goes to War, he actually said, as River says, this is what you do. And it's like, yeah, only in the new series. This is kind of only lesson for him to learn in the new series. It's like, well, the old series Doctor knew this anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. So just something like that. To me, even if it was at the end, just as a wee voiceover with the tune, I think it wouldn't be too much, because each time it is just letting you know this is Thunderbirds. We don't know who they are.
Yeah.
Well, we know who they are, but the people who are getting help don't know who they are, where they're from. All they know is they're getting help. Doesn't matter whereabouts in the world, what culture, they'll get help, and they'll come no matter what.
Yeah.
And they only arrive. Yeah, they only arrive when the emergency services have failed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. They never turn up to your house just to rescue your cat out of a tree.
No.
When you're serious, they're there.
Well, I said
And they are. Sorry, Colin, carry on.
Go on. Go.
No, but it is stated they are selfish of being, how can I put this? Selfish of not having their pictures taken, not having the aircraft being revealed too much.
No, actually, no. well, it's selfless because I think that they say the reason they don't want it exposed is because they don't want the technology being misused.
Yeah.
By the wrong. And also, I think someone asked like why I did get this discussion on my forum with someone who was saying like I don't understand why International Rescue keep themselves secret. He says, was this something left over from a spy drama that turned into a rescue drama? I thought, but in this day and age, it makes sense. To bring a horrible example, if ISIS was going to target anywhere to strike fear into the hearts of people, it would be International Rescue, because it's like saying, we're going to destroy your hope. We're going to destroy your hope so that no one's going to protect you, kind of thing. And that's
what the hood's there for, isn't it? To make that point. That's the whole point of the hood is to make that.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what I'm saying is like we live in a real world where there are people worse than him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely. Well, it's like anything else. It's like any you make, it's like, you make advancements, and if you've got advanced technology over everyone else, people are going to want it, and someone's going to want it to misuse it.
Yes.
So it's understandable.
In the end, sorry, carry on, Jim.
I was just going to say, if you do have access to this kind of technology and everything, you don't want people snooping around and stealing it.
No,
Exactly.
That's why
I got it.
That's why in the pilot episode, when Scott first arrived, he said, I want the police there to patrol my aircraft because I don't want, people snooping around.
yeah.
And then the end, they lose the car, and so he says to Penelope, go after them. It's like, Parker, smoke these mofos. Like it ain't no thing.
Well,
By the way,
carry on.
I do love the way that it just fades to black when Thunderbird 4 kind of gets covered and gets hit by the wave, and then it fades, like it gets covered in dust, and like it just fades to black. And so remember the thing that is I vividly remember that from the episode when I first watched as a kid. I thought, oh, it looks like
what you do is you turn the TV off at that time and say to the kids, they died.
But I mean, it's iconic. It's memorable. It's
it's something you'll remember, because you think about it. If you watch that and you don't realise that something else is coming on, that is a shock. That he managed to rescue him, but he got caught up in it. Yeah,
and you can guarantee that would have been an advert break, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the question is, how the hell do they get Thunderbird 4 out of there? Is another thing. Did the tunnel survive? Did they manage to go back at the exit, or did they have to get rescue vehicles into excavate it out?
I think the point. Well, I think what it was saying was that they had a fighting chance, and they come that far, and it's like I guess it was just you have to just assume that Gordon's intrepidness got them out of it.
Yeah. But if you think about it,
going back, but not necessarily buried, because silt and water, it doesn't need to be too deep.
But if you think about it logically, all of that was caused because the building fell down on top, right? So they were putting away from that. So all the collapse and all the rest of it, that would have been behind them. So they would have been
necessarily.
That would have been. Yeah, but most of the pressure that would have come.
It was above them because they were under the Empire State. So what side?
Depends how far out they were, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, because if
depends how far out they were.
Either the docks or further away from the docks.
Yeah, I mean, if they were far enough away, it would have been behind. It would probably push them out like a cork in a bottle.
Yeah.
But fair point, Jimmy. You know
whatever. Had to go in from the docks. Was that building nearer the docks or further away? They didn't actually tell you that, so you don't know.
No,
and that's a good thing about it, because you don't know. It actually makes it that wee bit more. Ooh, did it land on them, or did it just land somewhere near them that they got caught up in the backlash?
Yeah.
I'll be back in a second, guys.
I mean, this the thing that it strikes me that there is a difference, I think, between. I don't remember that much about Stingray. Sometimes I saw Stingray, but there is a difference between probably at least because of the tone, but between Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet. Thunderbirds, I don't think ever lost. I don't think anyone was ever killed on International Rescue's watch. No. There may be deaths before they got there, but I don't think they ever failed to save anybody. Whereas you look at when you get to Captain Scarlet, quite a few times the Miss Lawns won.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's like usually you go Thunderbirds episodes without a single death, whereas like you did never get this Captain Scarlet episode without a death.
Yeah,
there's a few rare exceptions in Thunderbirds. I think Perils of Penelope. I'm like, hang on, they killed someone. Like I've never seen this in Thunderbirds before. Yeah. And then of course, Thunderbirds 6 is just a bloodbath, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is. But I mean, I must admit, I mean, the weird thing is, I remember I've said this a few times, and I mean, I don't know, PJ, you're a little bit younger, so I'm not sure if this was quite the same when you were growing up, but I remember sort of having this weird, odd feeling. It's probably just distorted memory, but, you know, you had this feeling as a kid that there were 6 words you needed to know. There were 3 words you needed to know if you got in the shit.
Yes.
Calling International Rescue.
Yeah.
And there were 3 words you wanted someone to say that meant you were safe, and those 3 words were Thunderbirds I'll go.
Yep.
Someone says Thunderbirds are going, that's it, you're safe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the show gave you that sort of feeling.
You think about it, growing up, because of the programs we were watching and stuff like that, yeah, I mean, you would hear, it would be things you would see, your friends would say.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be a case of, are we all clear? Aye, we're all clear. No, it'd be a case of, can you see anything? Thunderbirds are go. You know what that meant. It didn't mean somebody else had to be listening in. We used to actually say that when we were up to anything, climbing the roof of the school. Anybody around? Thunderbirds are go. Up we went.
I mean, I think it is as you were saying earlier on. You think how many kids these days? I mean, I've got 4 grandnephews and nieces, and the oldest I think is 16. I'm thinking in 20, 30 years' time, how many of them are going to remember any of the kid shows they watched as much as we are now 60 years later? Nearly 60 years later, we're talking about Thunderbirds.
Yep.
I mean,
when Captain Scarlet, you know.
Well, when I was growing up in the 90s, they were repeating Thunderbirds. And,
exactly, yeah.
Like I just, you know,
I can honestly say I actually saw Thunderbirds on the repeat.
Yeah.
Just for the simple fact is it was made the year I was born.
And it was such a craze as well. Even when they brought it back, it was a craze. They even Blue Peter did this whole make your own Tracy Island.
Yeah,
I remember that.
And it was they had, if I remember right, they had to make that because the Tracy Island toy was just sold out.
Yeah,
it was the best-selling toy go back 2 years.
Remember your fairy liquid bottle making yourself a Thunderbird one?
Well, I remember vaguely, I have this vague memory of there was a shop in Kingston upon Thames called Bentall's, big department store. I don't know if it's even still there, but it was one of these ones that it was hollow middle. So what you got you got floors around the outside, but up the middle you got the escalators and the rest of it. And when I was a kid, I've memory going up there, and they actually had Thunderbird 1 and Thunderbird 2 hanging from the ceiling. They had Stingray. They actually had a Jerry Anderson display there at some point in the presumably 60s or maybe early 70s.
One of the shops I used to go for all my Action Man gear. It was in Duke Street. Brown's. My old man used to run it, and he used to have all the toys, and he had Thunderbirds. He had Steve Austin. He had Thunderbirds. Mm-hmm. He had them all. I was not into it when I was thinking, because I was into Action Men, so I would buy Action Men outfits every week. However, he did have all the Thunderbirds. He had Stingray. He had Steve Austin. He had everything. And it was what we could afford. The only thing the pocket money actually did was got us an outfit, because if we wanted anything else, we had to save up, and bugger that, because I might miss buying an outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned it, PJ, about the fairy bottle, I even remember seeing adverts growing up. Fairy actually taunting the kids that it's now so super effective to use our soap that it will take forever. There was this little kid just waiting and waiting and waiting for the bottle to empty.
So that advert, it was all about Mom.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember that advert.
Has anyone actually watched the new Thunderbirds, the new series of it, the CGI one?
Yes.
Because for me, for me, it's like it's the middle ground between the old series and the movie. Like, it's better than the movie, but that's not saying much. But it's like, I just feel with the CGI, it's programmed that the craft can just maneuver its way out. So it's not the same jeopardy when it's with this physical model. And I feel like it's almost too. I feel like the new series is almost too fast, whereas the old series was the right pace. I feel like
the only series I liked when they redid it was Captain Scarlet.
Yeah, that was good. That one was good. Yeah,
that was the only one I really liked. The other ones I thought just were cheap imitations.
Yeah.
Whereas Captain Scarlet seemed to actually work.
I second that. And the thing that I agree with you, Sadaka. I quite enjoy. I saw some really interesting ideas in the CGI Captain Scarlet. I thought some of the things were quite good ideas. They got rid of. They'd obviously 21st century.
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, did I go again? They got rid of Kirano. They got rid of Kirano and Tintin, and amalgamated her and someone else into
KO.
Thank you. I couldn't remember the character's name. The super spy. Which, okay, fair enough. You need to change something. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the thing that got me, the other thing I think that the only things that Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet had that made them in any way on a par with the originals was that they were created by the original creator. Yeah. They weren't remakes; they were reimaginings done right.
But I think it's not the same without the models, because the models is like you got to get it right in one shot. So it's like potluck to get it right just at the moment. And like with CGI, you're not taking any risks at all. So there's less of the jeopardy that you had with the old show.
And the thing is, you got to hand it to Derek Meddings doing the shot, filming the whole sequences of those models. And there was a mention that they were filming an explosion. And the fire hit the ceiling. And what does Derek come out with? The next time someone cuts an effing camera, I'm going to bleeding kill him. The shot to keep going.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you're doing it in CGI, you know exactly what's going to happen. But as you said, sometimes you might get a screw up that you need to redo it. So all that burning went to waste. But sometimes something might happen. You think, that looks amazing.
Yeah.
I want to keep that going. And I want that in, even though it ruined two of our models.
It's like that certain sequence close to the end of Thunderbirds 6, where I've got the name of it, Skyship 1 or something, falls straight onto the missile base. And Derek thought, sod it, let's blow the whole thing up. Let's keep it going.
It was the same as like Thunderbird 2. Mm-hmm. They knew that was going to destroy the model, that crash. And what did they do? Get one of the less rendered ones. Because they knew it was going to destroy a model, so get one of the ones that we built, but it's no finished. Because we're not going to actually do it to the good one.
Yeah. Well, even like with a Red Dwarf, sometimes with the model shot of Starbug, I think there was a scene in Series 7 where I think Starbug took off and they had these, usually when Starbug takes off, they got these aerosol canisters in there. Yeah. I think in this particular one, it shot flame because it was kind of trying to pull out of a lava planet or something. And so like they said, well, we can't use that. And I'm thinking, oh, that's a shame they can't use that. That would look such a great visual. But they said, no, we had to redo it. We had to do it with CGI then. I thought that's a shame. You know.
Yeah.
Well,
But that's what I'm
anyway,
saying.
now we're coming to the.
Models get some good effects with them that you can't with CGI because it's all predetermined.
And let's be honest, without Thunderbirds, we wouldn't have had Team America.
Hell
Oh
yeah.
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 Darker.
Yeah. Doka.
Anyway, in overall, would you recommend this to everyone who watches this episode to watch first?
I would tell them to watch the series.
Yeah.
This episode is a really good one. If you want to just start with something, can't go wrong with this episode. However,
I completely agree.
always
Yeah,
good.
I would definitely recommend this episode to somebody who'd never seen Thunderbirds before, because this was my very first Thunderbirds episode, and I have to admit, I kept saying to Darren, this is great. This is great. I would definitely watch the series after this because it's just so well done.
Yeah. See, one of my first episodes, I can't remember I don't think it was this one, but one of my first episodes of Thunderbirds had Thunderbirds 4 in it. That's why I love Thunderbirds 2 and 4. My favorite two. For the simple fact is, Thunderbird 2 came in, dropped, Thunderbird 4 is out. And it was that is the first time I saw the Thunderbirds vehicles, and it was 2 and 4, and they're my favourite too. No
and this is the first time that you actually saw Thunderbird 4 using emergency procedures to get out of the hangar.
Yeah.
So it just shows it didn't require Thunderbird 2 all the time.
And there's
That's also a great visual. If it like having to leave the bay on itself, that's a great visual as well.
Yeah.
And there's something else that Thunderbirds has got that it's got.
Sorry. Okay.
I'll
just say, does this get a recommend for me? Would I recommend to a friend? Hell to the yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on, Colin.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, I mean, it's also Thunderbirds in particular, unlike all the other, even the Jerry Anderson shows, it's got something in common with probably definitely my other childhood favourite TV show, which is Tomorrow People, which is, I mean, even more so in Thunderbirds, it was an action show where they did not go around killing people or something. It was, they were there for the specific purpose of helping people. The Tomorrow People specifically weren't able to kill or hurt people. Thunderbirds.
I'm going to slightly disagree there. There is one episode of Thunderbirds where they try to hold Alan hostage.
Well,
and,
yes.
And at the end, Scott comes after them and he just blows them away. It's like, do not
No, he didn't.
Tracy's.
He didn't kill them. He was warning them, but the thing is, they went over a cliff in the end because they didn't want to stop.
But yeah, I mean, it happens. I mean, Lady Penelope has done as well. But what I mean is, yeah, true. But the whole aim of the thing isn't that it's not to go around and nick people. The whole aim of the show is to go and help people. Kids show their role models to actually go and help people.
Absolutely.
Well, anyway, now we're coming to the end of the show. Next month, we'll be coming back with another Unplugged, which will be an interesting episode. Also, we'll be reviewing another Jerry Anderson classic TV episode, which will be Space 99 Breakaway, recommended by Wendology.
Yay.
That date is yet to be announced. Here we go.
Come on.
Are you talking Space 19?
Yes.
Look, if we could do Space
knew you'd say that.
1999, it's got to be done in September.
That's what
It's got to be done on the 13th of September.
We'll do it on that date, Colin. We'll do it on that date. But before we go, Sadaku is going to read a line from Jeff Tracy from an episode of Thunderbirds.
I'm going
Please take it away.
to do my best impression, right? Listen, for many years now, man has worked to perfect the material things in this world, and he's done pretty well for himself. If a building falls down, he can soon build it up again. With life, it's different. And this is why the object of international rescue will never change. Your job is to save lives that are in danger. And that's how it's going to be. Always. Got it? Did I do that well?
That's
Yes, you did
great.
that well.
Yeah, you did a good job with that.
That was really great.
Very
Definitely.
good.
Do I get to be Jeff every week then?
Yeah.
No, you could be. Yeah, you could be. So everyone take care.
Yep.
See you next month. Colin will be posting clips now and again. And
Yep.
as they say as they always say, FAB. Shall we all say it?
FAB.
FAB.
Do you know the one final thing is, unlike a lot of programs, this time every time a vehicle goes, you get the Thunderbirds tune, which I love, because it's not just a case of you get it at the beginning and at the end. You get it every time a vehicle gets into place.
Mhm.
Super.
Mhm.
You're listening Star Wars, Star Trek, and every other one.
Yeah, no, they're not. They're not listening. So
No.
Anyway, take care, everybody. Stay
take
safe.
care.
Please like, share, and subscribe. And see you next month. Take care. everyone.
Ta-da!
Ta-da.
Ta-ra.
Bye now.